Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. We are heading across the pond once again to meet a writing team who've written 2 musicals, with another on the way, started a production company, and that's all within the last 5 years. They have been very busy. Let's get to know them and their work a little better by welcoming James Beeny and Gina Georgio to the show. James, Gina, hello.
Hi.
Awesome. It's great to have you on here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
No problem. So before we get into your works and all that fun stuff, we always like to get to know our guests a little bit better. So James, we're going to start with you. We would like the 30-second bio of James. Who is James in 30 seconds?
That's an interesting question. I'm a lover of sport. I'm actually, bizarrely, a former professional cricketer, but I moved into musical theatre. My family have always sort of loved entertainment, and I taught myself the guitar when I was about 13 or 14, and the rest is history. I love animals, I love music, and I love sport. That'll do.
Nice, short, quick, to the point. Now we know you. Gina, you've heard what James said. You have 30 seconds. Who is Gina?
Well, I feel like James's answer was so good. I don't know how I can follow that. I feel like he really did get everything about you.
Your 30 seconds are up now, so that's it.
So I also absolutely love animals. I'm a great lover of birds, and actually had a bird for 20 years. I had a cockatiel called Elvis, who sadly couldn't sing very well, not as well as the actual Elvis. But I love music. I'm a pianist, so I started playing the piano when I was little, and I've always loved music, books, literature, and theatre, of course. So I think we have a lot in common, the two of us. The one thing we don't have in common is that James is a very talented sportsman. He used to be a professional cricketer, actually, and I am not sporty whatsoever. So I think, you definitely have that over me.
Gina's a very good badminton player. She doesn't admit it, but she's very decent at the net. That's about it. But,
it's a myth, honestly. That's a myth.
So, Gina, let's start with you. I always like to take it back to the beginning. Were you always into musical theater growing up, or was that something you discovered a little bit later in life?
Yeah, it's something that I was always into, really, because it was completely pushed on me by my father, who is obsessed with musical theatre. He is a huge fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber, of Les Mis, of pretty much every musical, actually, but particularly Andrew Lloyd Webber. So growing up, he used to play music around the house all day, every day, and 99% of that was probably musical theatre. So I would say I was kind of brainwashed to love theatre.
Disney as well was Disney, a big thing, wasn't it, for you as a youngster?
Disney, and he used to buy me lots of books, that you could sort of play on the piano, from all of the music from these shows, and from the Disney films, Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, and so I just used to spend my childhood at the piano trying to work out how to play them, really.
Nice. And James, yourself?
Yeah, I think I was introduced to musical theatre at quite a young age. My mum was a singer and my dad was an actor, so I was in that world to an extent. And my dad wasn't really a singer, but I saw him in a musical, I think, when I was very young, and he was always the character who can't really sing. That was sort of his thing. But I was very sort of passionate about cats as a youngster, as in the musical now. Not I love the animals too, but I just remember seeing it as a kid, and something about it really sort of captured me. And I remember whenever we had any kind of long drive anywhere, I'd listen to the cassette. I mean, that's how long ago it was. I'd sort of listen to the cassette from start to finish, and I knew all the words. And I think as I then got older, I obviously branched out into other shows, and I love Les Mis. I think that's probably my favorite show. And I saw Phantom when I was quite young. And I think for me, the way that a story can be elevated by music is the most kind of exciting thing about musical theatre.
Gina, was there anything else you want to do outside of the arts when you were in school? Because sometimes people just know they want to go into that, but then there's something they kind of want to do as well. Is there anything?
Sure. I can't really remember anything off the top of my head. I think I didn't really think about careers so much as what I just enjoyed to study. So I was always drawn to the arts and loved studying English literature, history, I also quite enjoyed languages as well. But yeah, I'd never really sort of thought particularly about what I wanted to go into. And then I met James when I was studying at university. So yeah, we just sort of, well, we were actually in a band for 4 years together before we started writing musical theatre pieces. So yeah, we sort of fell into it really.
Cool. So James, give us the lowdown. How did these two parallel lives of yours meet?
It is it's a bit of an unusual mix, I suppose, but I grew up with cricket. I think that was introduced to me probably a little bit before music for whatever reason. I mean, obviously I listened to music, but I don't think I played any instruments at that point. And it was just something I was mainly a batsman, and it, for whatever reason, seemed to click with me at a young age. And I went to schools where sport was always seen as a major part of your sort of existence there. And yeah, it just seemed I was very passionate about it. I loved the game, and I really, really loved to bat. And so it felt like an obvious thing to sort of pursue. But at the same time, it was interesting when I started learning the guitar. I think that was when I really connected with my instrument, because I had a few piano lessons before that, but it was never my sort of number one instrument. And I think once I became connected to the guitar, I suddenly found that I had these two different worlds, the cricket bat glued to my hands and the guitar at the same time, and they both felt sort of equally comfortable, but in different ways. And so I started writing the odd song when I was younger, and I liked to sing, and I think it was always there, as this kind of hobby in the background. But as I got older, I just, I realized that actually ultimately that was the thing that I loved more than anything. And I think for me, the thing I love about music is the fact that you can create something that is completely original. You can any writer of any song, it's the same as writing, literature or whatever. You're creating something that didn't exist before. And that's a pretty exciting thing.
So what was the band's name? What kind of music do we play?
We were called Virgin Soldiers, and our music, I suppose, was kind of rock music, but we used to kind of describe it as rock music with string instruments.
Acoustic, really.
Yeah, acoustic rock, I suppose. We had strings in the band. We had a viola player, a cellist, and a violin player as well. So it slightly changed the sound, I suppose. I think everybody's assumption really used to be that it was folk, but actually that the songwriting wasn't that folky. So we never really found a way of describing it exactly. But yeah, I think acoustic rock is probably the closest we'll get.
we still sort of work in a way with the same lineup and same musicians a lot of the time. So where the transition kind of happened from being a band into musical theatre was that we wrote a song about a war hero. And it was originally designed to be a song that we would sing with the group, but I don't know, there was something about this particular story that we sort of stumbled across about this war hero. It was a local man to us in Tunbridge Wells in Kent, and we just felt we had to do something more with it, and so we really started to develop the story. We started writing more songs, and before we knew it, we suddenly were in a position where we had about, I think, 14 or 15 songs, and we thought, what on earth are we going to do with these? Because we weren't really ready we didn't want to release an album at that point. It just didn't quite feel the right thing to do, and we'd been really building quite a decent following with the band through normal gigs and playing, sort of contemporary pop songs, I suppose you call them. And it was at that point that we decided, let's kind of create this concept performance, which I guess if it was a release, it would be a concept album. And it was a case of us playing the songs with our band. We sung as narrators. We had various people popping up on screens as narrators, and then in front of us on the stage, we had a cast of, I think, were there maybe 17 or 18, all sort of young local amateur performers, many school kids actually, who we trained over about a year and a half. Sort of every Saturday and every Sunday.
They worked so hard, didn't they? They worked so hard. They were there every single week, missing various things like birthday parties and all kinds of things. Yeah, they were so committed.
And they were very good. And, they by the end of it, they sung really, really well together. And we put it on for a few performances in Tunbridge Wells, in our hometown, a theatre there, then put it on in London for a couple of weeks. And I think the thing that we came away with after that experience was that we felt that to try and, I guess, explore the full potential of a musical production. Firstly, it couldn't rely on us. We couldn't be there. We frankly, we wouldn't want to be playing the show for the next 10 years. We have the ambition to try and make the show something that lasts in a theatre, and but also to be able to put it around the world in lots of theatres at once. So we decided that was part of it, but also to be a proper musical, we wanted to get rid of the narration and sort of turn that into a proper kind of sung through show with characters singing to one another. So it was at that point then that we really started developing it into the full show, which is now The Dreamers.
So tell us a little bit about The Dreamers and the plot and the synopsis.
So, as I mentioned just a moment ago about the war hero, it's a young man from Tunbridge Wells in the First World War. Was his father encouraged him to pull together a unit of men, essentially, to fight in the First World War, and the vast majority of them came from the same village, and they were sent to Gallipoli in Turkey. And on the way to Gallipoli, the ship that they were on, they turned the lights out in enemy waters, and about 40 minutes or so from the coast of Gallipoli, and another ship was heading in the opposite direction.
It was actually another British ship.
Yeah, exactly. An empty ship that had just sort of dropped off a load of troops on the beaches, and it was heading in the opposite direction, and they didn't see one another, and the larger ship crashed into the side of the ship with Reggie, who's the protagonist, and obviously all of the other men on the ship, and they went down within 15 minutes, and 155 men were killed, pretty much all from this one village, including Reggie, who was last seen giving his life jacket to another man. He actually had the only life jacket on the ship, and so that was what that original song was about, that sort of moment of not knowing what to do in that situation, and yet I guess his unbelievable sense of decency somehow came across him, and he was able to give a life jacket to someone else and save another man's life. I guess the definition of self-sacrifice. And so that's the sort of outline of the show. But then within that, we've built up all the characters and the relationships. I guess it's really about what it is to be a part of a group of people who love each other, and what it is to leave your family behind, and all the different emotions that are attached to war.
Yeah, and the first song was called 8 p.m. because apparently what had happened was they managed to retrieve somebody's watch whose life had been lost in the accident, and their watch had stopped at about 8 o'clock. So they know that's sort of roughly when the accident had taken place. So that first song was called 8 p.m. And I suppose the thing that's a little bit unusual about our musical that's about war is there isn't actually any war in it. They never actually make it to the battlefield.
Very interesting. Very cool. Gina, what was it like? You obviously were in a band, you were writing songs and things like that, but this is a whole different beast. You moved from a band writing to writing a musical with songs and everything that's intertwined. What was that like? Was that something that you found easy, or was it a little bit of a struggle because this is something new?
Of course, yeah, it was quite daunting, and still is as well. I think when you embark on a musical, you're in for a lot of writing, a lot of lyrics. That seems to be the thing that you kind of, for some reason, although it's the same amount of music pretty much, it feels like I suppose music has a more repetitive nature to it. So whereas lyrics, I suppose you have to write so many fresh lyrics, especially when it's a song through musical, and all of the dialogue and conversation is told through lyrics as well. So it is really daunting. We sort of try to approach it a little bit like when we were a band, and just kind of take it song by song and move through the creative process sort of just by chipping away at the story.
James, what was it like that moment when you've written the show, you got the cast, you got everything, and that first time you saw it on stage with everybody?
Well, funnily enough, we haven't actually seen The Dreamers, because so the way that it worked with The Dreamers was that we did a development workshop, and we didn't have any kind of presentation at the end of it. We just decided to try and kind of get through the whole thing, or as much of it as we possibly could, through a couple of weeks. And then we decided what was supposed to initially be a concert performance, but actually it ended up being more or less the full production. We turned Abbey Road Studios, the famous recording studios where the Beatles worked and that sort of thing, we turned it into a theatre. It was the first time ever that it happened in the history of the studios, which was really a lovely little piece of history, I guess, for us to have been a part of. And Studio One, which is the main space there, is where they record the orchestras for film and that sort of thing. We basically brought the whole thing in and built like almost like a little TV set in a way, and put the seating in. And the reason why we didn't see it was because we actually played the music for it. We decided it was a little bit, you can't not play your own show at Abbey Road Studios. It just felt it felt wrong not to be a part of it in that way. So we were sort of hidden away up in the darkness on a little balcony above, and played the music. So we've seen the footage back, but I suppose the one thing that I could probably say to answer the question would be the first day of the workshop, the first day of the development workshop, because that was very much for us, I would say, the first time where we were able to see our musical theatre sort of style creation on its feet. And we had Lee Proud there as a choreographer, our director Jean-Pierre Van der Spey, both of them there, and suddenly seeing songs come to life with a narrative element. I mean, that was really interesting, because obviously we feel, we sort of create a story for the characters when they're singing to one another, but often the songs are a little bit more generic. So for example, an ensemble song, there's one called The Dreamer's Anthem, which when we wrote it was very much a case of people singing about sort of national pride, going away to fight a war. And suddenly Lee, after a couple of hours, had the men all sort of doing a routine that I guess, what would you call it? Like almost like a medical,
yeah.
Before going to fight or before enlisting, and it was just amazing seeing that come to life. And I still remember that first workshop day really clearly, because it, and with real excitement, because it was quite surreal actually.
Yeah, I think a moment for me that kind of that I remember really clearly was seeing the actors and actresses in their costumes for the first time, because I think it suddenly felt like these characters that had just existed in our heads were sort of really there, really present, and had really come to life. So I remember that feeling, being at Abbey Road, and we were in the cafe at Abbey Road, which is amazing actually. It's one of my favorite things about Abbey Road, just as a side note, because the food is really good and they have really charming photographs of all the kind of iconic people who have sat in the cafe and eaten before. So I remember being in the cafe, which is always just pleasant enough as it is. And then suddenly some of the actors came through in their costumes. And I just remember actually feeling quite moved by it, and really feeling like, these characters who'd just been these abstract images in our heads had really come to life.
So at that point, now you had the Dreamers under your belt. Now let's talk about Lady M. What was the impetus for that? What made you want to write that show?
Well, I think so as we sort of put on this workshop performance of the Dreamers, we at that point were planning to sort of plow on and put it on for a full run in a theatre. And it wasn't, we started building momentum towards that. And then, of course, the pandemic happened. And so we were left in a situation where I guess we suddenly had a lot of time that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And, we had in our minds that we wanted to write a new show. And we'd been starting to, we'd been sort of going back and forth about what that might be. And I think we'd already decided that we wanted it to be based on some sort of classic kind of literature, whether that would be a novel or a play. And Shakespeare, I guess, is one of those things you just sort of keep coming back to. And I think what really appealed to us about Macbeth is that obviously it's such a dark tale, and in some ways it maybe doesn't necessarily feel like the most obvious choice for a musical, but because our style tends to be writing a World War I show, I suppose it's not satirical at all. There were sort of light moments in the Dreamers, but we love to write stuff that's gritty and serious, and we want to stir people. And so, for me, on a personal note, I love the idea of that, and the witches as well. Trying to get to the bottom of what they would be musically, it offered a lot of potential, I think.
Nice. And so where are we with the process of Lady M? Is it got a full production ready to go? Is it still in workshopping? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's still in development. We have done one, and I would say 1.5 workshops. But the first workshop we had to close because quite a few of us got COVID. It was right in the sort of Omicron phase. So that was really frustrating. But we did another workshop earlier this year with our cast and creative team. And now we're just sort of making some tweaks to the script and music. We're actually rewriting one of the songs. It's just us probably faffing around a bit now at the last minute. Just sort of changing things that might not need to be, but just why not?
Yeah, and I think one of the main things we're really working on at the moment is Lady Macbeth's presence throughout the story, because obviously being Lady M, it's we are putting the focus on her, and whilst we tell the actual story of Macbeth with a few tweaks here and there, we are also we sort of built in a backstory of Lady Macbeth based on one particular line in the sort of final act of the play. And so it's I won't say what it is because I don't want to sort of spoil the story too much, but but we have had to, or I say had to, but we've chosen to create an original kind of backstory for her, which ties in with everything. And I guess it explains why she is the way she is. We all have a picture of who Lady Macbeth is in our heads, and I think we just wanted to add a bit of human explanation maybe as to why she does what she does. And we developed some of the other relationships within the show as well, and I think that will add to it. But on the side of the, I suppose, the sort of behind the scenes development, we are also from a sort of public perspective, we're releasing tracks over the next sort of 6 months or so. So the first song, Mother Scotland, which was this was slightly stressful and awkward way of recording. We did it all in the lockdown, but then we didn't release it for about 9 or 10 months. So it came out after the lockdown, but it all had to be done remotely. And thankfully, an engineer we were working with, a guy called Mark Lord, managed to make it sound like a studio recording, which was amazing. I don't know how he did it because the recording devices were not the best. But yeah, so that was the first track, and that's gone really well. I mean, the play seems to be sort of picking up all the time, and it's about to go over 100,000 plays on Spotify now, which is exciting because it hasn't been really marketed yet. So it's just building that kind of organic growth, I suppose. And then the second song that came out was sung by Kerry Ellis, who is she's been our Lady Macbeth in the workshops, which has been fantastic.
She's amazing. And as another side note, we went to see her in Anything Goes on Tuesday, and she was unbelievable, and the show was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was very funny, wasn't it? Very funny. And Kerry is amazing. She's just so charismatic and obviously has an unbelievable voice. And so then we have another load of tracks coming out. Jamie Moscato has sung one, and Carl Queensborough, and Mayak Wants a Breed. And there's another one that we've sung as well that's going to be coming out over the next few months. But we've actually been working on the tracks with a guy called Rick Simpson, who is Coldplay's record producer. And he is just amazing. I mean, he brings something so special to the music, and we're sort of orchestrating, Gina and I kind of orchestrate the songs to a point with the lineup we discussed earlier, the band lineup, and we add some percussion to it. But then Rick is bringing this just unbelievable knowledge and of sort of samples and electronic sounds, and he's just got an amazing musicality about him. And so he's then sort of taking that and enhancing and elevating every area of the songs, and giving them a really contemporary feel, but also an incredibly atmospheric feel. I think that was the main reason why we wanted to work with Rick, because obviously when you listen to Coldplay, there's such an atmosphere to their sound. And for Macbeth or Lady M in this case, with the witches, and there's just so much potential there. But funnily enough, we actually tweeted Rick during the lockdown. That was how our sort of connection came about. We sent him a direct message on there, and we were incredibly excited when he came back because, as I said, we've wanted to work with him for years.
So many connections were made during with the lockdown, just social media wise, just saying, hey, hi, because what else are you going to do? It's not like you're going anywhere. Everyone is in front of their computers. You mentioned that you're rewriting some songs or working on some stuff. Gina, what's that process like for the two of you? Is it one writes lyrics, one writes music, you each write one or the other? How does that process work when you both, write that stuff?
Sure. So we do everything together. So we both do the music and both do the lyrics, and we both do the book and then some narrative side of things as well, which is really fun because you always have someone that you can bounce off of, and you're constantly sharing that creative process. So what we tend to do is usually, in sort of, rather than sitting down saying, right, today we're going to write a song, James will often just kind of play around on his guitar, I'll play around on my piano, and then we'll record things that we kind of stumble upon just in that kind of, I suppose in that kind of organic process. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of go through that sort of back catalogue of stuff that we've recorded on our phones, pick out a theme. So say we're then looking to write a scene for the witches, we might think, oh, that thing we did a couple of weeks ago might suit that. And then we'll sit with our instruments together and kind of really play around with those chords and ideas and motifs and themes. And then if it's a piece that requires lyrics, then we do the lyrics after on the whole. So we usually do the music first and then lyrics afterwards. And then when we kind of want to adapt or change things, then we kind of just work our way through line by line if it's a lyric, lyric side of things that needs to be changed. But if it's a musical thing, then we just kind of make our way through by playing the song again live in the room with each other, and kind of stop when it doesn't feel right, and then rework that. I suppose it's quite varied, really, how we work. But it usually just comes from jamming around on the instruments and then waiting for the other one to say, that was nice, what was that? And then usually you think, oh, I can't remember now.
We very often have melodies and harmonies before we have lyrics as well. So, I mean, I think musical theatre slightly changed our working process, because with a band, it would always be that all the music would come first. But we definitely now sometimes go into things knowing we need a particular theme or a particular feel. And we know, at this point, so-and-so has to sing a song that has this kind of feel. So there's a little bit more, obviously, of an inspiration coming from the story. But a lot of the time, again, he's sort of organic, kind of, I suppose it's improvising in a way, when we'll be playing chords and the two of us, because obviously I sing with a male register and Gina sings with a female register, which is quite useful as well for musical theatre, because especially with the ensemble songs, we're able to kind of sing the parts, work out where we want our harmonies to sit, and we'll usually write sort of third and fourth harmonies, kind of layering them on top of that. But the process this time around has been interesting, because we bought a few little bits of recording equipment just so we could do things at home during the lockdown, which was something we'd never done before. So the majority of the ideas go on the phone, which is just very basic stuff. So we've got thousands of things on the phone, but then it was just useful being able to have a decent setup at home so that we could record, piano, guitar, vocals for the majority of the show.
It's quite funny because sometimes we are also a couple as well, so we live together, and sometimes when you feel like you've stumbled on an idea, wherever James is in their house, I'll suddenly shout, get the phone, I need the phone. And just before you forget kind of what you're in the middle of writing. And then
it's usually just before I go to bed, and I'm just like,
get the
not
phone
now.
In the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. That's happened a couple of times with the show, which has never ever happened to me before, which is that I've woken up sort of at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's been a theme sort of going around in my head, and I've had to get up, and you get really cross with me. But the problem is, if I go back to sleep, that's it. It'll be gone forever. So but when it comes to kind of vocal melodies, as James said, we tend to harmonize together in the room and just kind of see what happens, really. So we'll tend to kind of press record on the phone, just harmonize together and just kind of swim about vocally and see what emerges.
I've been there at the 3 o'clock in the morning thing. Just inspiration hits and you're just, I have to do this. Nice thing is, it's just me, so I don't wake anybody else up. But I totally understand where you're coming from. And it's just, you just got to keep going until it's out, right?
Yeah, and you sort of have that feeling where you're lying there thinking, I'm really comfortable and quite tired. Yeah. Is it worth it? And you're like, oh, I'm going to regret this in the morning. So yeah, I get up.
Yeah. So in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, you started your production company, Toy Soldier. I'd love to learn more about that.
Yes, so we are, I guess, as theatre writers, I suppose we call ourselves more like theatre creators in a way, because it's not a situation where a producer comes to us and says, can you write the lyrics to that, or can you? I guess the way we see our shows, and particularly Lady M now, right from the moment that we decided we wanted to write a musical about Lady M or about Macbeth, we wanted to sort of pull the process together, so we went out and found the various people involved. We wanted to try and get some artwork that was going to represent the show right from the beginning. So we got a guy called Gary, who is he's a brilliant designer, Gary Kelly. He does all sorts of things like the script, the band he worked with, and U2, and he's more in that world. And that was I guess quite a conscious decision on our part to go for somebody more from a band background rather than theatre, to just give it a different feel and give it a bit of an edge. And then, of course, bringing Rick into the process, bringing Rick Simpson, and then our director JP and Lizzie G, who's been choreographing the workshops. I guess what I'm getting at is that we have an overarching vision for what we see our show being, and the look of it and all the different elements. And so for that reason, we wanted to have a production company that would represent us from a producing point of view. And that also includes the Dreamers and another project that we have going called the Frontline Singers, which was just a song we wrote in the pandemic, and about the frontline. Gina's dad's a policeman, and we sort of did one of those virtual videos, and then they actually went on Britain's Got Talent this year, which was lovely. And so they had a good experience on there. But we want, again, it was useful to have a kind of central production company that would cover everything essentially that we create. That's the idea, and it gave us an opportunity just to get a bit of financial backing to get the ball rolling with a few projects.
Yeah, the pandemic, obviously, it was terrible, but some of the stuff that came out of it we were forced to create, like, I don't know how many studios got created, like you said, in basements or in extra bedrooms, and creating, your production company and things like that. So congratulations to the two of you on putting all this together, and especially in the last, 5 years? It's not been very long, has it?
Thank you. We really feel like we owe our, the people that have come into our company and the people that backed us financially, huge thanks for helping us in that difficult time, because most of them came into our company during the pandemic, the very early months of the pandemic. And I think we really saw the best of people, that they really wanted to support the arts. And it meant that we could really drive these projects at a time when otherwise I think that would have been quite difficult. But
also, I think it showed during the pandemic just how important the arts are. I know, obviously, everyone was living at home watching Netflix all the time. We realized just how, what a significant part of our lives the arts sort of provide. And also, missing out on live experience. That was such a major thing for so many people. So I think it's in a lot of ways now we are kind of getting back to some kind of normality. It feels very exciting to see where live performance can go. So speaking of, where are you going? What's in the future that you can talk about for your shows and the production company? So our major focus at the moment is Lady M from a musical theatre perspective. We're really excited about the way things are going with the developments. As I mentioned earlier, the main sort of public thing that people will see over the coming months will be the release of the various tracks that we've been working on with some great singers. They were all recorded at Abbey Road as well, so that we've worked with some really top engineers. And the show itself, we hope there'll be some version of it in 2023. We're sort of starting sort of various talks with various people. I can't really say too much at the moment, but yeah, it's some exciting things are definitely happening behind the scenes. And I mean, it's quite possible we might do another week or two of workshopping just to keep developing it, because it's musicals, especially something with an epic kind of story like this, they are a major undertaking, and you need the time to, whether it's going through the story or working out, the choreography for scenes, because we'll have quite a probably some medium to large size cast for this as well. So, a lot of time will need to go into making sure that it looks and feels right. But so Lady M's going well. And the Frontline Singers, it's a separate project, but actually it sort of relates to musical theatre, because we had 3 people as a part of the group who were West End actors, who there's Paul Wilkins, Sam O'Rourke, and Devon Elise Johnson, who actually worked on the front line during the pandemic. So we felt there was a really sort of lovely kind of tie-in there, and those guys all appeared on Britain's Got Talent with the group, and we've got a single coming out in about a month, I think. It's September the 9th, which is Emergency Services Day. It's Strange Old World. It's the song they sang in their audition on BGT. So it'll be the first release by the group. And yeah, we're just really excited to keep moving that forward as well, because it has a really nice community feel to it. And I think there's potential to involve other actors, for example, in the future, because so many of them do key worker jobs in between acting jobs.
So how do people get to know you better? Is the website and social media? How can they get to know you?
Yeah, our sort of production company site is toysoldierproductions.com, which is very easy. And the bulk of the material online, Lady M Musical is the sort of main tag or handle, whatever you call it these days. That's at Lady M Musical. That's all over the place. But also we have an at Beeny Georgio page on everything as well. So that's kind of I suppose our writing thing, our kind of central page. But Beeny Georgio is not the easiest thing necessarily to spell, but I think if you get the Beeny part right, which is BEENY, I think the next bit probably follows on from there.
Nice. James, Gina, thank you so much for coming on today and introducing myself and the world that might not know who you are to your shows and what you've been doing. And congratulations on everything there.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having us. It's been really fun chatting it all through. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, I always ask my guests 3 questions. There's no right or wrong answer, but people are judgy, the listeners. They might judge you. I won't, but yeah, they might. So just to let you know. So an easy first question. Here we go. Question number 1. What creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? Now, it could be a composer, lyricist, director, producer, actor, even stage manager. Could be somebody famous or not famous, like a teacher. Is there anybody in musical theater, the musical theater world, that's had a great influence on you?
Yeah, so
I'm
going to say Sir Tim Rice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And I was going to say Cameron McIntosh. So
nice.
Yeah, I love Tim Rice. I think his lyrics are just so consistently clever, witty, so musical. He is an absolute hero, and we had the absolute honor of meeting him a few years ago. And yeah, I was very starstruck.
You know what? Perfect answer. I'm going to give you extra half point because you said Tim Rice. So 1.5 points for the first question. Awesome. Question number 2. Beautiful Game is about football. Lysistrata Jones, basketball. Damn Yankees, baseball. Is there going to be Bowler the Musical coming up anytime soon?
Well, I'm more of a batsman, so if it was going to, so probably not for that reason.
But like Batsman the Musical might sound a bit like something.
Exactly.
Right, that's why I went with Bowler.
Yeah, I think it's probably unlikely. I think it's not dark enough for us. I mean, we could tell a really dark cricket tale. They do exist. So.
So nothing in the horizon right now, but it's in the back pocket that might happen. You never know.
It's good to have the option, isn't it? To think, I could sort of be the consultant at least. I'll let you write the one.
If the game is anything to go by, it'd have to be about an 8-hour musical, I think.
Yeah.
I've sat watching
5 days.
Yeah, I've sat watching many a long. James always laughs at me because I say the wrong thing. Should I say match or game? If I were to
match
say
is
match,
better, but the game works
yeah.
too. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, he tells me off if I use the wrong terminology, and cricket has a lot of terminology.
You know what? I discovered cricket, I don't know, about 10 years ago, and I loved watching it. For beginning, I didn't understand a thing about it, but as I watched it, I was like, okay, I get this now.
It's actually quite popular. Yeah. It's as popular in Canada. when I was at university, I remember that we had one of the Canadian international players at the university playing, and it's it is a great sport. It's getting more and more popular, I think, because of the shorter versions of it. That's definitely helped that people don't have to be there for 5 days.
Yeah. I really got into it. I didn't know anything about cricket before I met James, and he's tried to teach me the rules. I feel like I'm getting to grips with it now, 12 years later. But yeah, it is an amazing sport, really engaging, and yeah, loads of twists and turns as well. I love it.
But not great for a musical.
No. Well, then as a follow-up, how about badminton the musical? Since Gina, you're so proficient at it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh gosh, this is oh no, this is going to stick now. I'm terrible at badminton. I'm, just for the record, terrible at all sports.
Correct answer so far. Another point for question number 2. All right, question number 3, the one they might judge you on. I don't know. We'll see. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater, which is worse?
Well, I think if one is eating food but quite discreetly, then I think that's the better option. I think it's harder to be discreet on something that lights up.
Yeah, there is no place for a phone in a theatre whatsoever. The phone should be turned off and put in the bag. Do you
know what though? I did have the thought the other day when we went to see Kerry that I wonder if there should be a point at which it's suddenly okay, like to film the bows.
They do that. Yeah, lots of shows do that. Okay. Yeah, but that's encouraged. But during the show, you can't be. I mean, the idea of somebody sitting there with the light shining on their phone is ridiculous. Or imagine taking a call in the theatre.
Well, the other reason I was thinking it was when we went to see the guy who's playing, who's been playing Macbeth in our workshops, has been on as Hamilton for the last year over in the West End, and he was unbelievable. We went to see his last show. And the moment at which he comes out and says his name, Alexander Hamilton, I won't try and say it because I feel like I won't do it justice. But when he comes out and sings that, the applause, because it was his last show, was going on and on and on. It was amazing. The atmosphere was incredible. And I so wanted to get my phone out and film it. I think some people managed to capture it. But that was one of those moments where I thought, I'm not going to do it, but I kind of wish I had been able to, because it was just incredibly magical to see him getting that support. I reckon the applause, the applause was just, oh my God, it was just going on and on and on. It was amazing.
But on food, obviously depends what it is. Sushi, definitely not. The hot dog, probably not. That's not great either. But there are some, a boiled sweet that you've sort of carefully unwrapped before the beginning of the show that's going to last through the first act. That I'm okay with that. I
had a guest told me that somebody brought in a bucket of chicken to a show, and I was like, what? Like, it's not loud, but the smell would be.
And your hand, what are they doing with their hands?
I have no idea. Like, it's weird.
That's really bold, isn't it?
That's
not just like I've brought in some sweets and I'm just going to softly dip in and out. That's bold. That's a meal.
I assume when you say that we're going to be judged on this question, I can't imagine that the chicken bucket person is going to be listening to the show. So I would assume you're on the right side of this argument. I think we'll be okay.
Your answers were perfectly fine. I would have also accepted they're both terrible. So another point. So congratulations, 3.5 points out of 3. I have no prizes, but you can have bragging rights. You can tell everybody that you won the game, whatever that means. So, but again, James, Gina, thank you so much, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
No problem. All right. We were just speaking with James Beeny and Gina Georgio, the creators of The Dreamers and Lady M, and lots more in the future. Tune in next week as we'll speak with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.